He arrived at the house just before dusk, when the world looked slightly wrong, too blue, too slow, as though paused between breaths. The door creaked inward with surprising ease. Inside, the air smelled unused, like furniture left to think for too long. It had belonged to his great uncle, a man he'd never met, but who, according to the letter, had left him this property without explanation or heirs. The name Uncle Edric rang with the hollow resonance of something half remembered. A name from childhood, maybe. A face glimpsed in an old photograph, or a dream. The house was wrong, though. Not in the way that haunted houses were wrong. It was clean, quiet. The wallpaper had barely yellowed, the windows all opened. The floors didn't creak unless stepped on. But it didn't feel like something you walked into. Felt like something that had already walked into you. That night, he dreamed. It was of a house, larger, ceilings that stretched into skylight voids, a staircase with no banisters spiraling up and up without end, hallways that bent slightly at the corners as though the architecture had changed its mind mid-design. And though he could not name a single room, nor recall a detail with clarity, he knew it was the same house. And at the top of the staircase, standing just beyond the reach of light, someone waited. The second morning, the kitchen drawer held a spoon he was sure hadn't been there before. Long-handled, silver, unfamiliar in weight. He chalked it up to oversight. The kitchen drawer hadn't been important. Then again, had he always had a kitchen drawer? That night, he dreamed again. Same house, same hush of something impossibly tall. This time he walked farther, through halls lined with portraits whose faces turned away whenever looked at. The walls whispered when he leaned too close, but he couldn't hear what they said. It didn't matter. When he awoke, the kitchen smelled faintly of dust and lavender. He did not own anything lavender scented. Each day brought a subtle difference. A window with unfamiliar framing, a door that opened more quietly than before, a room that felt just a touch wider. Nothing overt, nothing he could explain to someone else, but each night the dream house welcomed him a little deeper. Its rooms began to echo with memory, except they weren't his memories. He stood in a music room and remembered practicing piano there as a child, though he'd never taken lessons. He climbed a stairwell and felt the ache in his knees as though he'd climbed it thousands of times before. He reached for a door and knew it led to his bedroom, and it did. The dreams were growing restful, familiar, but with that familiarity came a question he hadn't thought to ask. Whose house was he dreaming of? One evening, he found a photograph on the mantel that hadn't been there before. A man seated on the porch holding a cane across his lap. Beside him stood a younger man, himself. But he had never been there before, not until last week. He didn't sleep that night, or maybe he did. He couldn't remember. Weeks passed in silence. He no longer needed to dream to see the other house. Sometimes, when turning a corner, he expected a hallway that had never existed in daylight. And for a heartbeat, it would be there, flickering at the edge of vision, more suggestion than presence, before reality corrected itself. Sometimes a piece of furniture would disappear and return changed. A lamp with a curved stem instead of straight. a bookshelf 1 tier taller. The house was becoming something else, or perhaps merely becoming itself. He wondered if he was doing the same. He tried to leave once, packed a bag, and stood on the front step, but the air felt too sharp, his body too light, like he was made of someone else's breath. He did not remember going back inside, but he was in the hallway again, bag nowhere to be found. The house was quieter that day, as if satisfied. Eventually, the dreams stopped being dreams. He wandered the other house, if it was the other, even when awake. He no longer remembered when he had last eaten or slept or received mail. His memories sloshed in him like water without a vessel. Sometimes, when he spoke aloud, the words echoed in someone else's voice, someone older. "Hello?" he whispered one night. "Welcome home," said a voice that may have been his. He saw his uncle once. He turned the corner of a hallway that should have led to the bathroom and found instead a narrow gallery. At its far end, by the tall windows veiled in velvet shadow, stood Edric, or the memory of Edric, or something that remembered him better than he ever had. "You've come far," the man said, though his mouth didn't move. "Where am I?" he asked. "You were always here. You've only now caught up to yourself." The house seemed to breathe in. "Go back," Edric said, with something almost like kindness. "Or stay, and forget there ever was a back." The lights dimmed, the gallery shifted. When he turned around, the house had rearranged itself again. In the end, he did not choose. The house chose for him. Sometimes visitors to the property report strange occurrences. A window where no room exists. A figure watching from the upstairs study, though the house has only 1 floor. And sometimes late at night the walls flicker between styles. Paint becomes wallpaper, becomes wood, becomes something soft and breathing. For a second they glimpse a deeper place within the house, place with no coordinates and no origin. Some say the house is haunted, others say it's alive. But the truth is quieter. The house dreams. And in dreaming it remembers everyone who has ever walked through its doors, even those who only thought about it, even you.